Scary movies, horror movies, movies that make you jump, cause fright, Tommy. Anything in that genre, that's what we're talking about today, horror movies.
It's that time of year again, we're already seeing it. The pumpkin spice is out. It's everywhere. People are getting in full-blown Halloween mode. So I'm ready to jump into it. Guys, thanks for watching along. If you haven't already, click that subscribe button for us. We appreciate you watching along. And also, if you haven't, check out our Patreon. We get a lot of fun, exclusive bonus content on there. Let's get spooky, guys.
Let's get spooky.
Get spooky with it.
All right. I mean, listen, I'm gonna start it off because you know what? Because I think what I'm gonna say, I have so many in my head. I'm not a giant horror mark, but as I started thinking more and more along the lines of it, I think that I might be in a way because of the movies I like. Like I never thought I was, and now I'm like going through my Rolodex. So I'm going to start it off with one that definitely might not be in most people's thing, but after I say it, maybe it will be. And that's a movie called The Matrix. And wow. I believe The Matrix is a horror movie. I know a lot of people
that's
say it's a sci-fi movie.
Okay.
Well, it's a horror movie because the outcome is deadly frightening. And if you look at it, it was meant to scare the shit out of people. And it was meant to make people think, what if this occurs? And voila, here we are, however many years later. And a lot of that is seemingly coming true. And what's, the scariest part of a horror movie is something that verges on the line of believability. Could this happen? And is it terrifying if it does? And when you look at The Matrix, it has all those characteristics. So whatever people might say, fall back, lean forward. I'm going Matrix for my first horror movie. I know nobody might not have that or thought.
Yeah, man.
Definitely not on my list.
Definitely not on my list either. But you know what? It's funny because it's like that movie, when did it come out? 2000? So it's like
1999.
1999. So it's like your perception of it has changed probably. At that time, it definitely, to me, I don't think it definitely was a horror film, but living in the times that we are now,
that's right,
definitely could be considered one. So I got you.
Yeah, there you go. D, bring it up. What do you got?
Man, I got to go with probably maybe, it's definitely going to be on most people's list. The great Bill Friedkin, The Exorcist, man. Like, to me, that personifies horror films. That sets the tone for every horror film made from 72 and on or 73 and on. And yeah, man, I think it's not my favorite Friedkin movie, but it's definitely a masterpiece when it comes to horror, man. I love The Exorcist.
That's a classic. You can't, you got to go with the prototypes, and that's definitely one of them. So yeah, that's going to be on a lot of lists, I bet.
That's a lot of people's goat too. That's like a lot of people's number one.
Great theme song too. Every good horror film has a good catchy theme, you know what I mean? Yeah. So Mike Oldfield on Tubular Bells was the the score on that, which was really cool, iconic tracks.
Tommy, what do you got?
All right.
It's getting spooky.
So guys, I got to go with, in my opinion, the GOAT horror movie because it's got my favorite actor of all time in it, and that is The Shining with Jack Nicholson. I mean, come on, guys. That's going to be a number one draft pick. You know it is.
Easy.
You got Easy. Kubrick in all his Kubrickness. So many Easter eggs and cool little nuances in that movie that people still talk about to this day. And it's just Jack doing his thing. I mean, I think that is one of the roles that kind of, it certainly didn't put him on the map, but it's one of the roles that when you think back to this crazy catalog, like that's one of the movies you're going to dig up. So I love the movie. I love the effects. Like Demetrius said, it's got a lot of great music in it as well. Just what a performance by Shelley Long. Just a great cast. Red Rum. I'm going The Shining.
Mm-hmm. Shelley Duvall.
Oh, Shelley Duvall, not Shelley Long.
Shelley Long was great in Cheers, but
I got my Shelleys. I'm so sorry for mixing up my Shelleys like that.
No, that's good. That's
Talk about trauma that our guy Kubrick put her through, man. Like, what was it, like 270 takes or something?
I heard he was very abusive.
There's a lot of rumors about that. It's a lot of rumors. I mean, I've studied that movie. That movie would probably be on 3 Rushmores, probably 4. It'll be on a Kubrick Rushmore. It'll be on a Jack Rushmore. And for me, it would be on, I might have to put it on my top 4 movies of all time, that movie, because I think it's one of the greatest films ever made. It's Jack in all his Jack. It was like they just gave him and said, Jack, just go. But I don't know. There's a lot of rumors about it. I've studied every part of that movie inside and out of how many takes and all that, but Kubrick says a lot of wise words when they've asked him about it. So, but she did it. She gives a better performance than anyone in that film. Scatman Brothers. Scatman's amazing in it. Everybody.
Great, man.
There's one scene. It's so funny how there's little things you remember about movies, but there's one scene where like she's just got the longest dangling ash coming off of a cigarette. As a former cigarette smoker, I'm just like, flick the ash, just flick it. But
that adds to it all.
For sure.
What's so fascinating, I don't want to harp on it, but what's so fascinating when you really dive into that film is the attention to detail. Like the detail is bananas. They just don't do it anymore. So it should be on.
A lot of innuendos in that movie too, by the way.
So many. Kind of like how The Matrix, like that's one of those movies when you go back and you just continually watch it, it grows. Your appreciation just constantly grows. There's a lot of movies that you loved and then you watch after and you go, oh, maybe what was I thinking when I watched that and I liked it? That's one of those ones that every rewatch makes it like better and better and better and better. Great pick. I'm going to follow right up on that with one that I know is going to be on everybody's list. I think it should be, because it's a game changer as a culture. When something changes the way we as a culture behave, and especially in a scared sense, and that's Jaws. I just think Jaws changed the way we looked at the ocean. I know a lot of people have regret about it. The guy who wrote the book and Spielberg, because shark attacks really aren't what they're made out to be in that film, but it's very hard not to go in the ocean, especially at certain points, and like get deep in the ocean and not think of, I wonder if there's like a great white out here or something. So I think that and the history behind the film and what it did. And again, the rewatch value is incredible. I think Jaws is, it's not as terrifying, but it's the thought of the ocean and the vastness of it and how, unprotected you are when you're in there and what can happen. And they really exploited that in a way that's amazing in film.
Another great running theme too. These movies, one thing they have in common is they always have like a running theme, whether it's dun 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 or
for sure. That's one of the most iconic themes of all time by John Williams, right?
Yeah.
What I love about Jaws and the thing to talk about is, this is horror movies, man. Like one of the most important aspect is the effects. It's all about the effects, right? So I think Jaws nailed it. I mean, like there are some scenes where if you were to show that to a little kid, I mean, you scar them for life. They look so real. So I think the effects are just outstanding, especially for a 70s movie. And that's all practical, guys. How cool is that? Like
it's all practical.
No CGI,
Yeah. And for me, for all my picks, they're pretty much going to have practical effects with it. To me, I think that's the way to go when you're playing in the horror genre. So number 2, man, if we're talking about practicality, there's none better than John Carpenter in Halloween.
Whew. Unbelievable.
Talk about making a killer movie, culture-wise, changed everything on a budget, like a low budget, only a little bit of blood throughout the whole movie, like psychological. Music,
soundtrack, psychological, the way the shots were framed, a perfect film when you really think about it, like in what it was, a mission accomplished.
Yes. Yeah, and how cool is the folklore behind, if Rushmore fans don't know this, Michael Myers' mask is a William Shatner mask that was basically spray painted and they, messed with the hair a little bit. And just iconic, such an iconic mask. It's a friggin' William Shatner mask.
It's amazing.
What you just said to me, especially in the world of indie filmmaking, that is it. That's the spirit of indie filmmaking. Like figuring it out on the fly. Somebody runs here, grabs a mask and improvises. And now that mask is probably the most iconic mask in the world. Or one.
Ain't that son of a bitch gray? And let's get on with our day.
Yeah. Just everything about it. I again, that's a hard one to leave off in what is that, 1975, right? I think it's 75. 77. That's a hard one to be off people's list because it really is the beginning as well of so much that was happening.
And it's
in
the
that
beginning of a
genre.
run. Like you said,
Yes.
Jaws, Star Wars,
Yeah.
like, like think
What a
about all
time.
the iconic movies that were released then.
What a time.
Also, like I think we can all associate, there's that kind of gang of 80s horror movie boogeymen. You got your Jason, you got your Freddy, you got your Pinhead,
Everybody.
you got your Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
Jigsaw. Everybody.
But really, Michael Myers might have been the first one. Was it that one or Texas Chainsaw?
Texas
first?
Chainsaw.
Texas.
All right, so Leatherface is the first, but
yeah.
Michael Myers he's right up there. He's number 2.
He took it
in that whole
mainstream,
lineup.
Michael Myers.
Yeah, exactly. He brought it from Broadway to the theater.
Yeah, he brought it mainstream.
2,000 screens.
And one thing about all these movies that we just discussed, probably with the exception of The Shining, is that they're all franchises. Well, actually, The Shining too. So they're all franchises.
Yeah, they're all franchises.
Halloween, how many Halloweens they've had. I mean, nothing's better than the original, but yeah, man, John Carpenter, Halloween.
Yeah. I do like 3. Everybody shits on 3, but I like 3.
Season of the Witch, it's different.
I like 3 a lot, man. I'm a
Shit
big
on
fan.
3. I like 3. Yeah. All right,
It's
what do you got,
different,
Tommy?
unique. Okay, so again, I love horror movies. I'm a big horror mark, so this one was tough to narrow it down. But I'm gonna have to go with, and you might get some grief on like which one you pick. But for me, it's Friday the 13th. Jason Takes Manhattan specifically, because that one is
great.
just so campy and ridiculous. It's one of the first ones with Kane Hodder. It's not his first, but it's I'm a big fan of Kane Hodder as far as there are several guys that played Jason. Kane's my favorite. And I just think it's a great story. It's like the idea of like, all right, we've made quite a few of these movies at Camp Crystal Lake. Let's take Jason out of the camp. And
is that pre-space or post-space when he went to space?
That's pre-space. Yeah,
Pre-space.
exactly. And it just goes to show you from a storytelling standpoint, sometimes all you got to do is, change a couple of ingredients, change your location, make a great, memorable movie. But the funny thing about that movie is they advertise it as like Jason going around killing people in New York City. And really, the whole movie takes place on a boat. And then it's only like
to be in Manhattan.
Yeah, like the end of the movie, like the last frame, which is pretty cool. It's just Jason kind of like walking through into Times Square, and like you're supposed to imagine what's going to happen, but it's a fun one. So
you're going to catch a lot of heat. You're going to catch heat for that one, I think.
I don't know, man. I mean, like, I think that part of the horror genre is like the fun, playful nature of it as well. Like, there's a whole bunch of fans that love that camp. So, I mean, like, that's kind of like my one head of the mountain for Rushmore, where it's like that represents the camp,
Question: Did Friday the 13th, was it thought of before the movie dropped, like the way it is now, versus, or did the movie come out first and then all of a sudden it became like this notorious,
I
day?
think
That first one was highly successful.
No, I think the idea of like 13, the fear of the number 13 is actually called triskaidekaphobia. And it's been around for a long time.
No elevators have the 13th floor, no hotels.
So I bet you that's been a thing for a long time, but
great title.
I bet you it definitely it kind of enhanced it with that franchise, man.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those movies that I feel like a lot of people, and I know I did this, and I'm sure you guys did too. You'd be like, "Oh, what's the new Jason movie?" Like people just started calling it. Jason took over the franchise.
Yeah, I was the same way. You just called it the Jason movie. And speaking of amazing villains, I mean, I like to think about things, and obviously from my list, things that change the way we think, right? Obviously, I just said Matrix, Jaws. Jaws changed the ocean. Matrix changed everything, kind of the way we look at things. And the next one for me is real simple. And there's definitely a way it impacted my life. I thought Nightmare on Elm Street was the most terrifying film ever when I was a kid, because it wasn't just terrifying when you watched it. It was terrifying after you watched it, when you were trying to go to bed. It's like now all of a sudden, I'm scared shit when I'm watching it. Okay, cool. And now I'm scared shit when I'm laying in bed. So the way I tried to counter it, this was back when Spencer Gifts would sell those like 6 foot, posters. And they had a big giant poster of Freddy. And I was like, I'm just going to put it right next to my bed. And I put it right next to my bed. It was like this big giant, 5-6 foot poster of Freddy. And I was like, if I have that, maybe I won't be as terrified. And meanwhile, it was like when I started sleeping with the covers over my head at all times because I just didn't want to see him before I went to bed. So trying to be cool and using that definitely did not work for me. So Nightmare on Elm Street for me, obviously young Johnny Depp, a lot of things going on in that film. Just talk about the sweater and the claw in the hand and the sleep. I mean, and franchise and Robert Englund, amazing. It's just what a concept to terrify you and die in your dreams.
The boiler room, the kids, like the song 1, 2, Freddy's coming after you. Like, and remember the one scene that really stood out for me and scared the living shit out of me was when
his arms.
He's walking down. It was just so creepy, man. Like,
great effects.
Yeah.
And then Fresh Prince does this song.
Nightmare on My Street.
Yeah.
And again, like back to the effects. I mean, that makeup design on Freddy's face is so iconic. I mean, mangled up hamburger meat face. It's just so well done. And those movies are just phenomenal.
John Saxon, old school actor, character actor.
And also, again, like the cool thing about Freddy, which we kind of just did it, like you don't have to have even seen a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And if somebody says, "Oh, did you see that guy walking down the street? Looked like Freddy Krueger." Like, you know what it means. You just know, like, it's scary. You
didn't even have to say the last name.
You didn't even have to say the last name.
Freddie,
That's what I was going to say. Freddy,
Jason,
Michael, Jason.
Yeah.
And think about how many pop culture moments, like how many 80s and 90s movies where it was used, like, oh, who's your teacher, Freddy Krueger? Whatever. Like, it's just like, it's just became such a woven into pop culture so nicely.
Yeah, I got to spend time with him, with Robert Englund, and he's a great dude.
Since we got all three of those guys out, right? Freddie, Michael, and Jason, who would really win?
Oof.
Real quick. Sidebar.
Freddie, because he'll kill you in the dream.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know that Jason
dream?
sleeps because he's already dead.
Right.
I don't know. I think that's a tough one. I think Rushmore folks. Tell us who you think wins in this ultimate battle of all the boogeymen, Royal Rumble style. I don't know. It's a tough one.
Do you add anyone else in there? Well, we'll see if anybody else gets added.
I think Pinhead.
Let's see what the audience thinks. Let's see what they come back with.
We would love to know who's the ultimate.
Because if the three of them are in the ocean with Jaws, they're all dead.
That's true.
Lights out, bro.
Lights out. All right, go D.
Oh man, so look, man, if we're talking horror films, we got to go back to the classics. We got to have a good vampire film in this Rushmore, man. I mean, it goes hand in hand with Halloween. It goes hand in hand with horror movies. I'm not gonna go with the typical one like Dracula. I'm gonna actually go with a little campier one with Fright Night. Chris Sarandon, a Tom Holland movie back in 1985. Had a little comedy in it. I love it. One of my favorite movies. I watch it every Halloween.
I must fall back on sheer ignorance. I've never seen this movie, but I'm sure it's a great one. No, I gotta check it out. I'll have to put that on my
definitely check it out.
It's going on my Halloween list. I like to watch a lot of horror movies, so I'll put Fright Night on there.
Chris Sarandon's great, man. He different style vampire, and I would definitely check it out.
All right, so this is tough again, but I'm gonna have to go with Silence of the Lambs as my horror movie. Dr. Hannibal Lecter. There's another one, just like I said about Freddy Krueger, how it's got that brand identity where you could be like, oh, what is it? This guy looks like Hannibal Lecter over here. You just know, like, that's not a good thing to be Hannibal Lecter. Cannibalism, how fucking weird is that to begin with?
So sophisticated. It's cannibalism you don't see coming, right? Like, that's the other thing.
No, and what I love about that film too is obviously, like, the performances are obviously top notch, but I just love the production design in that movie. All the sets are just terrific, from the asylum where there's that little corridor where you have to walk down and finally see Hannibal in his little cell, right down to when they put Hannibal in a cage, basically in the middle of like a gymnasium, it would appear, an auditorium, and he escapes at the end of the movie. Just such a well done film from top to tail. Love that movie. Silence of the Lambs it is.
Yeah, what's his name? Buffalo Bill with what's his name playing?
Ted Levine.
Ted Levine, yeah.
How incredible that apartment was, and with the house. I mean, with the
Mhm.
dog and like the girl in the pit. What's her name? Kate. I forget her name from Grey's Anatomy. She was fantastic in it. It's just, again, when you feel like you're watching something and you kind of feel dirty, like you feel like this is disgusting. That's
Mhm.
kind of what that all felt like when he was there and you were in his space. So yeah, that's a great pick. That's a terrifying movie, but again, it's more of that mental terrifying, which I think is way scary.
Psychological.
Personally,
I had to make up for Jason Takes on Manhattan.
you had to get more sophisticated. Yeah. Well, for my fourth, it's tough. I got a couple in my head, and I'm trying. It's very hard. I'm just going to shout this out. Well, I'm not going to shout it out yet because somebody might say it, but it's hard to leave off the list. But for me, a movie that just like really kind of it just fucked me up when I was young, and it was like one of those things that, again, it got into the psychology of it all, and it wasn't jump scare, it wasn't crazy, it wasn't one of those things, but again, psychological kind of warfare was Jacob's Ladder. Like Jacob's Ladder had me like so twisted, like where I was like, and again, it's one of those ones that you just kind of have a tough time going throughout your day or night after you see it, where you're like, what the fuck is going on here? And just little things like the guy going by in the subway, and it's going into the dreaming, and the chiropractor is the angel. And it was just very bizarre and scary, and kind of makes you go on that psychological trip of this is frightening. And again, once you start playing with that reality of the situation, I think it's very different than the jump scare stuff. It just really affects it. I know it impacts me differently. So Jacob's Ladder, I'm going to go with as my fourth because it terrified me.
Cool title as well. Again, I think that's a big part of these movies, something that can kind of live on forever.
No, that's going to be my fourth. And I'll tell you what my two going honorable mentions, but you go, D, go.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, we're talking horror films. We're talking Monster in the House. I think this movie in particular is probably the greatest Monster in the House movie of all time. And that's Ridley Scott's Alien.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nice one.
Yeah.
Very
that's
nice
hard
choice.
to not. That has to be on the list somewhere.
You know what I mean? Like, it's got everything, man.
One of the most iconic scenes in any movie, forget about horror or anything, is that alien coming out of the guy's chest.
Yeah.
I mean, such an iconic effect. That messed with my head when I was a little kid. I remember seeing that for the first time and just being like,
Ridley kicks so much ass. Like Sigourney Weaver is such a G. Like really just like, that's obviously pre Terminator, Linda Hamilton, right? Terminator's much later, right? Yeah, she just such a G, and like so kicks so much ass in that movie. And man, Ridley, is that what number movie is that for Ridley? Is that like, that's not number one?
I mean, as far as like box office, it is.
That's number one for him, but I wonder how many films he did before.
Yeah.
Because he really had like, he really just came, like that movie is, I mean,
it's a masterpiece.
Consider it a perfect movie.
I personally think it's a masterpiece.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. It's got it all too. Jump scares. It's mentally terrifying. It's got future terrifying. One word title, which is my favorite.
Same.
Yeah, it looks like he did. Looks like Ridley did a lot of TV for a couple of years there, and then a couple of apparently like TV movies, and then he did Alien in '79.
Wow.
And to be honest with you, 79. Okay, that is it. To be honest with you, Aliens, the sequel, is almost just as good. With
I love Aliens, man. I love I love the vehicle that they ride in that movie, and how they took a Steadicam, which is a piece of camera equipment, and turned it into a badass machine gun. Just so many cool nuances in that one. But yeah, that's a great pick. And again, like you talk about iconic, not quite a boogeyman, but you can almost put the alien in that mix. Like people talk about Predator, and the alien itself from that movie is an iconic creature for sure.
Yeah, super iconic. Go for it, Tommy. Wrap it up.
All right, guys. I really love this movie because this movie kind of embodies that natural human sense of we all kind of are in these situations, and in our mind we think of sometimes some terrible and violent things that we would like to do if we had our druthers. And that movie is American Psycho. So I love American Psycho because it's just a movie that kind of like the narrative itself, and I'm not going to sit here and break down all the acts, but it's like it kind of just like is an odd kind of stream of consciousness. The story itself doesn't really have a lot of, your standard beginning and a climax and an end. It's just kind of like a day in a life kind of movie of this complete psychopath who's, obviously at the top of the business food chain. And it's just interesting to think that, obviously at the end of the movie, we find out it's all kind of in his mind. Mm-hmm. But I just love that rug pull at the end where we got this violent movie the whole time. And then you find out it's all kind of just makes you wonder what people are thinking sometimes.
And one of the best acting ever. The acting is
Christian Bale's just out of control.
Beyond incredible writing, incredible acting, incredible camera work, incredible attention to detail with the business cards and the Huey Lewis soundtrack and
that was great.
And the plastic.
You were in a raincoat for.
Yeah, I mean it's truly definitely one of those films that will never ever get old, and yet is definitely I would consider a horror movie. I think some might consider it a thriller, but I think it's a horror movie as well because of what it does. Let's knock out an honorable mention just because we're here. I'm going to throw this on because I think that for me, again, you're talking about, I think it was 1990. I might be wrong, but the year that, it was a cultural moment for me was Lost Boys. Lost Boys would definitely probably be a horror movie for me. The Frog Brothers Live Forever. 87. They were as cool as they get. You're eating Michael's maggots, Michael, and just like everybody, Jason Patrick, Kiefer, everybody was like the top. And when he becomes the vampire, the boyfriend, he's the head vampire, with I forget the name of the dog who's like a wolf. I'm gonna forget it. Nanook. Oh my God! Everything about that movie
that's a perfect movie great. In my opinion.
Perfect.
And you know what? And to be honest with you, that I would definitely have that on my Rushmore. I slipped my mind. To me, that is a perfect movie because it even though you're dealing with like the costume wardrobe, the on-set look, like the production design, all that stuff. Even if it was made in 87, it still feels fresh today. It still feels cool today. Like it feels cool. You know what I mean? Like the music was great. How about the guy with the saxophone who actually made a career?
He still does it at Comic-Cons. He still plays all over.
Dude, he made a career off of that in Madam Action on Thunderdome,
I still believe, It's amazing.
Yeah, I still believe, yeah.
All right, what's your honorable mention?
My honorable mention is going to be with the late, great Jimmy Caan, and that is going to be Misery. Love that movie. Definitely one of those stories that kind of sticks with you, and you're just kind of watching. It's like train wreck the whole film, and you're like, oh my God,
so good.
Yeah, amazing film. So if you haven't seen Misery, check that one out.
My God, the
The penguin faces due east.
So good. What do you got, D?
I would have to go. I'm actually going to throw two out there. Two of my favorites. First one being Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho. To me, you can't. I mean, you got American Psycho, and then you have Psycho, the original. So, to me, that's got to be out there somewhere. And then also the original Evil Dead, man, by Sam Raimi.
Nice choice on that one.
Yeah, they shot that movie for I think under $80,000, and it's like the first big cabin in the woods movie. Pretty much, set the standard for every cabin in the woods movie moving forward. So both iconic.
And Bruce Campbell became a horror icon,
Yep. Horror icon.
Yep.
Amazing. So, yeah. I mean, it's funny. You think you're not a horror mark because, I don't see all these like, strange, like weird, horror movies. And then I realize like horror thriller.
Classic horror, though.
Classic horror.
There's a big difference between,
part of horror is like
80s and 70s versus like coming out in the last 2010s and beyond.
Yeah,
it's like,
not for me.
Yeah,
no, I think there's something about horror that's just part of growing up. It's like coming of age. It's like whatever. I'm sure the kids today, they're probably having conversations about the scary movies that they're gonna go see.
Not if they're using CGI
on
and
summer
everything,
break
bro.
or whatever. But you know what I mean? Like horror will never die, because like the
Yeah.
idea of like coming together and being scared as a group, like that's bread and butter, baby.
Yeah.
I
There's
think
definitely there's so many I left off now that I'm thinking about it, and it's gonna drive me crazy.
out of all the ones we listed,
Do it on Patreon.
out of all the ones we listed, there's just something about when you make a horror movie with practical effects versus the CGI.
Oh yeah,
That's the
no
difference.
question
I
about
mean,
it.
Because it
It's
makes
like-
it more realistic. It makes
Yeah,
everything
you
tangible
lose
and touchable. Tangible.
Yeah, you
Movie
lose-
it's movie magic.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for watching along, and
Yep.
don't forget to subscribe. You got to click that subscribe button for us. And if you haven't already, go check out Patreon, because see these discussions that we have where we dive a little deeper.
We're gonna
That's
go in.
all. Yeah, we're gonna really go in deep on Patreon. We're gonna do a reverse Rushmore now, where we talk about our least favorite horror movies.
Probably the ones we forgot, but more importantly, put yours down there, because I'm sure they're either different or maybe one or two of ours will be on there. But we want to hear from you. What are your 4? What are your Rushmore? And let's go.
Yeah.
Horror
And by the
movies.
way, who would win between Freddy, Jason, Jaws, and Michael Myers?
Jaws is in there. All
Oh
right,
yeah,
well,
put him in there. Put him in
Put
there.
him in. Put in
No,
everybody.
yeah, every horror,
them
any
all in.
horror villains applies. Just
Jaws
who's the
wins.
ultimate? Who's the ultimate?
All right, y'all. Take it easy.
Peace.